Just before this BBC podcast gets underway, here's something you may not know. My name's Linda Davies, and I commission podcasts for BBC Sounds. As you'd expect, at the BBC we make podcasts of the very highest quality, featuring the most knowledgeable experts and genuinely engaging voices. What you may not know is that the BBC makes podcasts about all kinds of things, like pop stars, poltergeists, cricket, and conspiracy theories, and that's just a few examples. If you'd like to discover something a little bit unexpected, find your next podcast over at BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Phil Goodlad, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, keeping you up to date on all the stories that matter in our beautiful game. It's Thursday, the 25th of April. Here's what's coming up for you today.
It was all very civilised. There was no nonsense. And they played Dignity, and Ricky Ross was there, and it was just like, oh my God, this is the stuff of dreams.
Dundee United fan Lorraine Kelly joins us to share her delight after a momentous moment.
There's the opportunity and a great save. Chance, goal! Chris Mulgrew knocks the ball into the back of the net, and that could be the goal that clinches the championship for Dundee United.
And there's no let-up in the championship.
There's Lewis Vaughan! And it's in! And it's Inverness, Kelly Thistle 0. Raith Rovers 1.
With the top of the table tied up, we turn our attention to the battle at the bottom.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Joining me today, the former St Johnstone, Ayr, Hearts, Partick Thistle. I'm starting to get breathless naming them all. Ryan Stevenson. Ryan, hello.
How are you doing? That's a lot of clubs.
Well, it is a lot of clubs. Tell me why. I mean, when you were growing up, did you not think, well, I'll do Barcelona and then I'll maybe nip across and do Juventus? I mean, you've done a tour of Scotland.
I kind of thought Man United would be my only pit stop.
Have you had a weekend in Manchester? It's not that great.
It's not that great, no.
Listen, we'll get into all things with Ryan in just a moment. As mentioned, we're also going to be speaking to a certain face off the telly, not because Lorraine Kelly is good value to watch of a morning, but it's because she knows her football inside out, and she's pretty happy as a Dundee United fan at the moment. Before we get to all that, though, let's run through the latest Scottish football news. Stephen Gerrard is keen on being reunited with two of his former players. The former Ibrox boss reportedly keeping an eye on both Connor Goldson and James Tavernier, who he is believed to be keen to bring to his Saudi club Al Ettifaq. Dundee United recruitment chief Michael Kearney says work is already underway to identify potential summer signings. The 30-year-old has worked with Dutch side FC Twente and Doncaster Rovers. And the Aberdeen goalkeeper Kelly Roos says he wants to talk to incoming boss Jimmy Talling before making a decision on his long-term future at the club. He's going to see what players suit and who don't, Roos says of Talling. We will find out soon enough.
The Scottish Football Podcast.
We always focus on the Championship on a Thursday. This time last week, Ryan, you were comparing Dundee United to Real Madrid. Let's compare them to all those mountaineers that's climbed Mount Everest and can now celebrate and bask in the glory.
Yeah, listen, they've done everything that they had to do, I think, at the start of the season. By hook or crook or whatever way they could, they just had to get back up. And I think there was a lot of noise at the start of the season, obviously, with the manager and the way things had sort of ended the previous season. So, listen, they've done what they've had to do. They've done it well. I think now the biggest thing for Dundee United is to make sure that they go up and they stay up and they're not in a relegation battle next year. As I was saying last week, they're a massive club and they should be in the top flight of Scottish football. So I think the question sort of for the management and the guys behind the scenes is how much of a squad overhaul do they need and what players will be able to stay to keep them in the Premiership next year, and not just keep them in it. Dundee United should be up in the top six, no question.
And Ryan, we're chatting away as if Dundee United have actually sealed their return as champions. And I think because we're the BBC, we should say it is mathematically still a possibility that Raith Rovers could swing the goal difference. As far as Raith is concerned, Do they now view this as a crushing disappointment that they're now not going to go up automatically, or do they almost revel in the fact that they're going to be in the playoffs and it's now work begins again? It's almost like a different project.
Yeah, you have to sort of shift your mindset pretty quickly. I think it's difficult. It's hard because no matter what inside you, they would have, every single one of the players would be thinking, we want to win this, and it just takes the pressure completely off. You know, the playoffs are just a bit of luck because it can swing pretty quickly in these games. I've been involved in playoff games, and they can swing either way very, very quickly. And they'll need to now shift their mindset to, right, we're in the playoffs, who they're going to be facing, getting themselves ready, keeping themselves sort of fit, and keeping themselves mentally sharp, because it can take a lot out of you. I think when you're in a title race and then, you know, you do lose out on it, it can take a lot out of you mentally. So a big job ahead for Wraith Rovers to try and push through in the playoffs.
If it's big for them at the top, penny for the thoughts of the teams involved at the bottom. In Queen's Park, they go to Arbroath. Queen's Park 9th, Arbroath already relegated. It's a big game this weekend. Queen's Park almost seen as the sleeping giant of the traditional championship sides, but they've got a lot of work to do to remain in that flight.
Yeah, I think the last year or so, a year and a half, everybody's sort of been sitting looking at Queen's Park thinking, are they going to be able to climb up in the leagues? We all know that they've came from being an amateur team into what they have now. They've got a good bit of money behind them. They've got a very good manager for that level. I think the same as Inverness are two big high-profile names as their managers. And again, you just don't want to be in that playoff. I think when you've had a season where it's been tough, it's been difficult, you've lost a lot of games, you're in the playoff, and you're going against teams in the league below you where undoubtedly they've won a lot of games, their confidence is probably high, and the pressure will 100% be on that team that finishes 9th in the championship.
Ryan, can I ask you about Queen's Park? 'Cause I mentioned there that they're a team in the championship that's almost seen as a big side in the traditional championship sides. But then Queen's Park, of course, they came up, they changed their amateur status, they had investment. Does that add extra pressure on Queen's to be a side that seemed to be challenging to get into the Premiership?
Absolutely. I think because they were absolutely flying at one stage. It's not always as easy as that. I think sometimes you can get carried away when you just think, this is all going great guns and everything's sort of motoring forward. The brakes have sort of been put on a little bit, but there will be pressure. I think behind the scenes, they'll be expecting, or they would have been expecting a bit more. I think bringing Callum in was a big move on their part as well. As I said, he's a big name manager for the championship. So I think for them, they'll want to just try and get above Inverness and then consolidate, and they'll need to obviously try and go again next year, but undoubtedly they'll be wanting to push up the championship and try and get in the Premiership.
Queen's Park then against Arbroath. Inverness, who you mention, they're away at Dunfermline. Who do you think will finish 9th between Inverness, Queen's Park?
I think it's a toss of a coin, to be honest with you. I think it's whoever, when you come into these last couple of games, it really is whoever holds a bottle. For players, it can be difficult because, as I said, it can, as it is in the playoffs, if you lose a goal in a game, automatically things come straight into your head and you're thinking, that's us, we're done. And it might not be the case. You could lose an early goal and things can sort of unravel. It really will be down to, for me, the team that sort of keeps their cool, that manages to just sort of get themselves over the line. For me, I genuinely think that Queen's Park will get out of it. I think Inverness will finish 9th.
And of course, finishing outside of 9th is one thing. Finishing 9th is almost just then you then need to get into the second part of the escape act, if you like, and that is, okay, you can't be relegated from the championship, but could go down through the playoffs, and we'll touch on that in just a moment, because we'll take a look at League One. Firstly, I want to hear from Dundee United superfan Lorraine Kelly. Goes to as many games as she can. Almost a national treasure to the rest of us, but to Dundee United, Well, she's just another fan. I've been speaking to her and offering her congratulations on her team getting back into the Big Ten.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
Lorraine, it's wonderful to speak to you. I always get a shiver when I hear we're going to speak to a celebrity fan because I think, my goodness, are we going to pretend that they know what they're talking about? But it's great to speak to somebody who actually knows about the team they say they support. Congratulations, you're back where United should be.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I mean, that was a terrible game up until the goal, and then the hopeless. I mean, it must have been about 10,000 people in there. I'm sure it was about 10,000 people, and I think I was making more noise than anybody. And it was just great. You know, it was brilliant. It was fantastic to see, you know, mums and dads with their kids there going bananas, invading the pitch in a very Dundee United-like fashion. It was all very civilised. There was no nonsense. And they played dignity. And Ricky Ross was there. And it was just like, oh my God, this is the stuff of dreams. It was fantastic to be there.
What I loved about the pitch invasion was that you were almost queuing up in single file to be allowed to get onto the pitch.
Yes, we are very, very civilised as a football team, as you know, getting fair play awards and all of that. But yeah, it was a very dignified pitch invasion. And then everybody sort of like, you know, did what they had to do, sang, danced, and then toddled off. It was lovely, and it was a great atmosphere, and we needed it. We so needed it. And unless there's a disaster of biblical proportions, it would have to be, wouldn't it? We'll be there where we belong, which is brilliant.
I played golf for the Dundee United fan on Monday, and he was, as you might expect, cock a hoop. But he said something really interesting, which was he took his 10-year-old boy to Tannadice, and for the first time he tasted success as a United fan. Mm-hmm. And success to a United fan of 10-year-old is very different to you and I, who remember United as a force. And it's almost like Saturday bridged the generational gap.
I know exactly what you mean. It's a wee bit like being a Scotland fan as well, because I grew up with Scotland being really good, you know, until it all unravelled. And we're back again. You know, it's almost like it's kind of parallel, isn't it, in many ways? And of course, I started supporting Dundee United because my lovely husband is a huge, huge Arab. I mean, a massive Dundee United fan. And I started going, I was spoiled rotten because I went in the days of Maurice Malpass, you know, Eamon Bannon, Sturrock, Neary, Hegarty, all these amazing legends. In fact, I saw Paul Hegarty in the Dundee United shop when I was buying bits and bobs. I saw him in there, and Maurice Malpass was. I saw him at the game as well. It was like, oh my god, and I get so excited. I have to do a selfie. It has to be done. And of course, anytime I can get Dundee United into my show, I do, because I was interviewing the fella. I don't know if you've seen this thing on Netflix called Baby Reindeer. It's very dark and disturbing. But the fella, Richard Gadd, who it's his story and he wrote it and stars in it, it's number one on Netflix. It's a huge, huge thing, Baby Reindeer. He's a massive United fan. So we ended up, of course, we were talking about his drama, but we ended up talking about Dundee United, talking about he lives in Wormit, talking about Maurice Malpass. I got a chance to show a picture of Maurice Malpass on the show, and to tell the world that my cat was called Maurice Malpass. And of course he saw me and said, the stick that I've been getting this week with you saying your pussycat was called after me, and I'm like, I'm really, really sorry. But yeah, we saw the glory days. I mean, I was a reporter back in the 80s. Maybe I went to Mönchengladbach, and that was like the most biased piece of reporting you've ever heard in your whole life. It was appalling on that level. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I know we didn't take the trophy and then we lost the Scottish Cup again, but it was still brilliant, and we kind of took it for granted a wee bit.
A word on United this season, and specifically for Jim Goodwin, who, let's be honest, has a fairly fractious relationship with a sizable element of the United fans. Do you think by actually getting them up on the first attempt that will almost solidify the relationship between Goodwin and the fans? I
think so. I mean, he said that he was relieved, and he wasn't the only one. You know, there was 10,000 of us and many more that weren't there that were relieved as well. I think it does actually. I think United fans are good at giving managers the benefit of the doubt until it gets to the stage where it's like, no, enough is enough. I don't think we're anywhere near that yet, not at all. And especially, I think you've got to give him a chance. You've got to give him a chance. And, you know what it's like in football, all the kind of like, oh, no, this is rubbish, this is terrible, all of that sort of stuff. And then, of course, it all disappears because you've got to win. So personally, I think absolutely give him time. Just give him time. You know, it's not going to be easy going back up to that league. It's not going to be easy at all. We all know that. You know, there's some teams there that are going to be really, really tough. But I feel as if, I don't know, something happened on Saturday, and I really felt as if, you know, they were really playing as a team. It felt like there was a team. There was, you know, they came together, and there was that spirit. And if you saw them at the end, the joy on their faces, it wasn't, you know, it was more about they really were playing for the jersey, the way that they used to, the way that all players used to. So I got that sense. You know, I might have been looking at it through tangerine-coloured glasses, but that's how I felt about it. So I think, yeah, give them time. And, you know, we do have to be, I know, you know, there's an awful lot asked of fans, especially with clubs like United, but I think we do have to just give them time, and let's see where we are, and thank God we are there.
Well, you're there in all but name.
I know we can't actually say it, but we can surely we can say it. I mean,
by the way, see if Raith Rovers does swing the goal difference, it would be the greatest Scottish football story ever.
It would. I would be devastated. At the same time, I would obviously say wow and salute them. But
we'd get you back on if it happens. Trust me, we'd get you back on. Lorraine, I wonder too. I wonder too if the fact that United weren't runaway winners this season, the fact that they didn't open a 15-point gap and maintained it, that actually there is a level-headed expectation of going up into the Premiership next season.
I agree 100%. If you do win, you know, by a huge margin, there is all that expectation on you. There's a lot of weight of that, and that's hard. That's really difficult because, you know, there's some really, really young players there, and it's a lot to ask of them. So yeah, I think we're going in a level-headed way. We're not expecting to do amazing things. Obviously, we're totally behind the team, and it would be great, and I'm sure we will, you know, see bigger crowds, obviously, and you know, hopefully all those 10,000 that turned up on Saturday will continue, because there is always that danger, because, you know, there's a lot going on. That's what I really love to see is, you know, like mums and dads taking their sons and their daughters to games, like you know, you said a 10-year-old there going, that's fantastic, that's what you want. And I'm always, you know, there was a lot of kids there. And that we need that, you know, the whole of Scottish football needs that. We need to attract younger kids in there and to play the kind of football that's going to get them excited.
Two more quick questions,
sure.
And I'll come to the main one at the end, because I know you're going to cast your unbiased view over who is the biggest club in Dundee next season in the Premiership.
But that's not even a question. You know, that's not even a question.
What's the impact like for you as a provincial Scottish club supporter in Big Bad London, where everything is not even about English football, but it's about London clubs, and probably two in particular? Does the fact that a once big Scottish team that has tasted success and been promoted at the weekend, is that even mentioned in the sports pages down the road?
No, not at all. Only because I mentioned it, and I do on my show. It's amazing how often you can get tangerine and black on our fashion items. Astonishing! You'd be amazed. No, it doesn't at all. But then I suppose because of, you know, new technology and all of that, I mean, we watch the games if we're not up in Scotland actually there. We can watch the games down here because every football club now has got their own, you know, their own
Club TV.
Yeah, Club TV, and we watch that. So we're kind of, I suppose, in a little bit of a bubble down here in that we are still very much aware of that. You know, we watch North, it's not North Tonight anymore, but you know, the Grampian, as I still call it.
Yes, North Tonight.
Sorry, and when we watch BBC, I mean, we actually sit and watch BBC Scotland News, we watch BBC Scotland Channel, we watch STV, so I guess we are more in a sort of bubble and getting more information about Scotland than a lot of people that live down here, so we don't feel so isolated, and I think that makes a huge difference. And just obviously keeping in touch on social media with the fan sites and things like that is it makes a big difference. But no, absolutely not. Down here, no. You wouldn't be hearing anything, honestly. You'd barely be hearing about Rangers and Celtic, to be fair.
My granddad, bless him, at 6 o'clock, we would always watch North Tonight, and when it finished, he used to say, we better find out what's happening in the rest of Scotland. Let's stick on BBC One.
Listen to BBC as well.
Listen, Listen, come on. I'm genuinely asking you this question as a football supporter,
Right.
and let's pretend we're in the bubble of a West End London wine bar and we're speaking about football, right? If Dundee qualify for Europe next season and they're in continental competition,
Yes.
and the newly promoted team from the Championship comes to Danes Park, surely Dundee are the bigger club at that stage of the rivalry. At that stage. Lorraine, it has to be.
Yeah. But, I mean, if that did happen and Dundee got into Europe, of course, I would obviously be going for them. Of course you would. You absolutely would. Of course you would. And I am so looking forward to the Derby games. I'm so looking forward. But I'm going to duck out of that question. I'm going to be a politician and say, well, no.
So you're going to duck out the question, but you've answered the question for us.
I'm a rubbish politician.
Listen, congratulations.
I'm so thrilled. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
And you know what? After the disappointment of a relegation, to then get a promotion on the very next season counts for something.
I know, it's
so
great.
well
and to
done.
see Maurice Malpass. I
know.
mean, come on. Life does not get any better than that.
I love the idea of my friend's 10-year-old son saying, why is Lorraine off the telly getting a photo of that old man? Well, that old man is only one of the greatest players ever to play for United. Lorraine Kelly, congratulations. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much.
There we are, Ryan. A man of many clubs, but now you can also tell your family and friends that you followed Lorraine Kelly on the Daily Football Podcast.
That's my claim to fame.
Listen, from Kelly to Kelty, there's still one playoff place up for grabs in League One. Montrose currently pole position on 47 points. Cove Rangers a point behind. Kelty Hearts are on 44, who they're playing on Saturday. Montrose then. On the 47-point mark. How important is it for teams, Ryan, at this stage of the season, to simply be involved in matches that mean something? There's still something to play for.
Listen, that's the be-all and end-all. Is this is what you want. You want the business end of the season and the excitement during the week, the butterflies you have when I actually get butterflies thinking about it because I've been involved in both where you've got something to play for, whether it's chasing the playoffs or you're chasing, when I was at Hearts, you're chasing third to try and get into Europe. And I've had the opposite side where 5-6 games to go, you're safe, you've got nothing to do, and it is horrendous.
What effect does that on you as a player, physically? Do you feel the nerves restricting you?
No, I think you've just got to embrace it. I mean, this is what we play football for. I think you've got to enjoy the fact that every Saturday when you go into... If you're one of the players just now, you know you're going to a game on a Saturday, the crowd's going to be at it, you're going to have to be at it. As I said, during the week you'll have the butterflies just counting down the days thinking, right, it's Wednesday, Thursday, 2 more days to go. You know, on a Friday night you're going to your bed and all you want to do is just get to the Saturday, get to 3 o'clock and have something to play for. And these teams have. And again, the same as Inverness and Queen's Park, it'll be whoever keeps their nerve. I think at this stage of the season, when you've got something to play for, a lot of times the actual football goes out the window and it's really just about who can keep their nerve, work hard, battle, and you're just hoping that bit of luck falls on your side and you manage to either get in the playoffs or get promoted.
Whoever manages to secure 4th spot is up against it as well. Alloa and Hamilton already securing the playoff places. The prospect then of facing probably either Queen's Park or Inverness. Again, I always feel slightly sorry for clubs at this stage of the season, Ryan, who have done so well to get into the playoffs, but then the job just begins again. And in many ways, the jobs can be that much more difficult because they're playing a side that's above them. Yeah,
listen, it's the nature of the beast, I think. Again, it's just this roller coaster of emotions as if you get into the playoffs and you kind of almost think, wow, what a season we've had. And then you've got a short space of time to regroup, to refocus, to look at the team you're going to play against, whether it's Inverness or if you're finishing 4th, Inverness or Queen's Park, and you really have to sort of get yourself back in the groove and go again. But as I said, what you can take from it is the fact that these teams that are coming into the playoffs from League One will have good seasons. They would have played well. majority of the season to be in the position they are. And if I was the managers, I'd be reiterating the fact that either Queen's Park or Inverness have had the opposite. It's been a long struggle. It's been a long haul season for them. So listen, they've got nothing to lose. Any of these teams in the league below have got absolutely nothing to lose against the teams above them. So it's just about going, enjoying yourself and trying to get that win.
Ryan Stevenson, quote of the day: enjoy yourself in the playoffs. Ryan, you do come out with them. Enjoy yourself.
I've been there a couple of times, and if you don't enjoy it, what's the point in playing football?
But surely you look back and you only enjoyed it when you were successful. You can't enjoy the playoffs when you end up at a 4:45 and you're out of it.
Well, I'm saying that the twice I was involved, in the 3 times I was involved in the playoffs, I won it 3 times. So I've only got fond memories. I think if I had lost it a couple of times, I'd maybe be saying a different answer.
Listen, Ryan, great to have you on as ever. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the Daily Football Podcast, and also to Lorraine Kelly, who we heard from earlier. Remember, Airdrie Dundee United sports scene tomorrow night, the BBC Scotland channel from 7:30. Dundee United can mathematically secure the championship with that one. Remember as well, special podcast dropping for you today at midday. Our chief sports writer Tom English has done a sit down with the Scotland manager Steve Clarke. Really interesting insight from Clarke on how he's going to go about picking the squad for Germany, but also he says he's going to Germany to tell the players not to be tourists, especially in that opening game against Germany. They're there, he says, to win a football game. That drops for you later at BBC Sounds. Look out for that. And Jane Lewis will be back in the chair here tomorrow with the Scottish Football Daily Podcast, looking ahead to what should be an intriguing weekend in the Premiership. For now, though, enjoy the beautiful game today, and we'll speak again soon.
The Scotland Rugby Podcast is now available every Tuesday. Join me, Andy Burke, and Tom English. Just head to BBC Sounds and subscribe to the Scotland Rugby Podcast.
It's just seismic stuff.
There's bucket hats as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is this a rugby podcast or is this a fashion podcast?
Why can't it be a bit of both?
Rugby. Let's get on to rugby.
There's a lot to be excited about. Today's guest, John McGuigan.
Clubs are at the absolute bedrock of everything Scottish rugby's about.
The Rugby Sports Sound Podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.
You cannot help but be so excited. It's going to be the centre of the rugby universe.
BBC Sounds.